point.
Please do reintroduce David. Okay, muting now. Go.
Reintroducing David. So welcome everyone. We are honored to have our GBO Hong Kong member David with us tonight, who comes from a really interesting and diverse and dynamic background of playing drums, being the head of a radiology department in the oncology unit of the New York medical system at one point, and has been in Hong Kong for more than 20 years. I'll let him tell you a bit more about himself and what he's learned and what he's doing now. So take it away, David. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Leanne. Thank you, everybody, for coming this evening and in the morning, wherever you are. And I hope that this is useful to you, what I have to say. And I'm not sure, you'll give me feedback, I'm sure. My background was in the medical area originally. I come from a family, my father was a doctor, my mother was a nurse. I always had a creative bent. So music, as Leanne mentioned, played the drums since I was 6 years old. Did it professionally for a while, but I, of course, fell back into the medical world. That landed me in radiation oncology. Originally training in New England, the United States, working in Boston in academic settings, then New York in academic and private settings, probably over 25 years period. I did go back in 2010 to work at NYU and manage the radiation oncology department. And that led me on or started me on a path, which is why I'm here tonight. I didn't intend to be an inventor anytime in my life. And it came about in probably the same way as a lot of people end up being an inventor, unless I'm not from an engineering background. I do have a technical background because of my medical background, but clearly I was not interested in this, and I'll explain why it happened and what I've learned along the way. I am not a lawyer, so but I have engaged many lawyers and gotten a lot of advice over the last decade to help me with my project. And I, of course, have lawyers engaged here in Hong Kong and in New York City working on the project that I'm involved, the two projects that I'm involved in right now. So that's my background. So I'm just going to start with the topic, protect your ideas or someone else will. And this is very true, especially more than ever. This is important for inventors. So let me see my slide. Okay, there we go. Nowadays, because historically, people had to make an effort to go out and steal your idea. But now with the internet and social media, if people aren't very careful, their ideas get out right away. And there's many people around the world that don't have integrity around your idea. And if they can monetize it or start a business off it, they will. And many times they're legally correct to do so. They have no, there's no legal issue can bring against them unless you've taken certain steps with governments in your region or globally to protect your idea. So I've learned by trial and error along the way, and it had to I had to learn many skills along the way, and I'm still learning, of course. But it's been a very interesting road, and I would say I'll just give you a little fact. Maybe some of you know this. Only 1% of inventions or ideas ever make any real money. So you have to be really willing to be passionate about your idea, and you have to bring something to the table that will make the world a better place or make somebody's life easier in a good way. So unless you're motivated to do that, the road can be usually for this kind of startup about 10 years. So I'm sort of at the peak and at the gate, and people are circling around and talking to me now, and it's just about right, but it's been a long road. So I would encourage people only if they really love the idea that they're going to get involved in. Otherwise, you could maybe share it with somebody that might be generous to you and take all the hard work that would be ahead of them, okay? So this quote by Walt Disney I came across because it was on a slide deck, and I just stole it for tonight. I don't think there was a copyright on it. Lots of people have ideas, and in social settings, some people will tell you their idea or come up with an idea and not even think about that they just gave you an idea. An interesting one I had years ago, a quick little story was I was sitting in Queens, New York, in my previous life with previous wife, and there people were over and they were having a good time, and I said, why don't people put a bar next to a laundromat and link it and make a business out of it? And they all started laughing. I said, that's a great idea, because they like to have drinks and they had to do their laundry. New York City, you have to go do your laundry either in a basement or a local laundromat. So I didn't do anything about it. I just thought it was, it was just nagging me. So sure enough, on the TV, I was watching the news a few years later, and somebody in Chicago has set up a laundromat and a bar, and they had not copyrighted, but incorporated that, and they were looking to franchise that business. Now, that's not something I necessarily wanted to end up doing, but it was sort of a wake-up call. 1986 is quite a while ago, but I said, well, I had an idea and somebody acted on it. So I have had many ideas, and the people I've worked for all over the years have happily taken my ideas and monetized them. And that's okay. I didn't think of working with them to monetize it, but as I got older, I thought I should take my creative energy and put it forward. So not just for the money, but also to do it the way I want it done. Because when you have an idea, you might have a lot of vision. If somebody takes your idea, they're never going to have the same vision. They might be able to monetize it, make money, and get it out there, but it might not help the people that it was intended for in the same way as you intended it. So that's a part of control issue. But sometimes you have to let go of also of your idea to make it grow. And that's another discussion. So this idea, I'm just going to introduce the idea briefly. It's using biometric readers in healthcare. And everybody knows, everybody's concerned about cybersecurity now and having their identities stolen online and actually having their passwords stolen. And I created a method and a hardware device with a team to develop and tested that can protect people's biometrics identities and also the people helping them, their biometric identities, and have a report issued for every medical event that would go on in a hospital or a medical setting, anywhere, even an outpatient pharmacy, a commercial pharmacy. Now, unless you're in the medical profession, it might be hard to wrap your head around what that means. Aside from the privacy issue and that their biometrics could never be stolen from a hospital, and their identities are being stolen all the time by criminals, cyber criminals right now from hospitals because they're not that secure. The data that you could get from this method would protect people from fraud, the insurance companies and the individuals. And more importantly, in my heart and mind, it would prevent medical mistakes based on mismatches. There's thousands of deaths each year around the world by the wrong patient or the wrong clinician doing the wrong procedure at some time, and it can lead to serious injury or death. And I know in Great Britain the average is around 8 to 10,000. America, it's probably higher, but there's over 1 million medical errors that can lead to injury just from picking the wrong patient. So what I designed would prevent all that, plus prevent fraud, which is in the US alone, it's around the world, but US is about $300 billion in medical fraud a year by doctors and insurance companies get frauded, and so do the public. So these are big problems. So this idea actually came to me while I was working at NYU, and it didn't come to me, as I put on the slide, it didn't come to me by the ocean when I was chilling out or relaxing or trying to take a vacation or at any other downtime. It came to me in the middle of work under a stressful environment, managing people, and I saw that something should be done to prevent problems for the patients and the people taking care of the patients. So this method was devised and it's patented now. I've gone down the road, I'll explain how I got there, and it's protected and it's being marketed now to investors and medical device companies. So it came to me by a radiation bunker, which I hope nobody ever has had the experience of being next to, for radiation therapy. And the person I mentioned it to was quite a talented fellow, or is, and he said, you should patent that. So that's how my journey began, by a simple statement from somebody that I had respect for. I never intended to patent it. I didn't think about it. I usually gave my ideas away. But because he said it, and he was a pretty good critical thinker, I started to go down that road. So that's what happened. That's how it started. People's ideas can come to them in many ways. And it can come through listening to music, taking a walk in the woods, or being in a stressful environment like I was, or many ways. But what you should understand, and most people do, if you have an idea and you start to share it, eventually it's sort of not your idea anymore if you put it out there. If you want to protect it for, number one, making sure the idea gets done properly and into the help people in society in the right way, then you better start patenting the idea if it's a medical device or if it's a mechanical device. And there's copyrights and trademarks for other parts of ideas. And I can go over that briefly if you want, but I'm more in the patent space. And then also there's a monetary part. There's something called a golden idea in patent law. So if you come up with a golden idea, like an iPhone or something like that, it probably would be good to patent it. If anybody ever, if you can Google the iPhone design, you will see it's quite complex and very heavily patented. But in the beginning, one man had an idea with another man and they started to design the iPhone. So from an idea, it comes from you, from your soul, from your heart and mind, but then you do need help. So an invention, a real invention that gets out and helps the world, is never done by one person. They might have the idea, but they have to share it. And that also means you have to share the equity, the monetary benefits of patenting it, and also the responsibility. So that's some other advice I have, because when you try to do it on your own, it will not work unless you're Superman or Superwoman, whatever the case is. So I would not recommend that. So I've been doing this over a decade. So basically it starts with an idea. If you have an idea for a product or a equipment or a method, you have to figure out, what do I do? Do I trademark it? Do I copyright it? Do I patent it? And along the way, you will find that there are many surprises will pop up. Least of all is money in order to patent it properly. Because, for example, in America, if you prosecute and develop your patent, a minimal fee, if you get a lawyer that is reasonable, will be $25,000 US. So that's not small change unless you have a lot of money to spare. Big technology companies like Siemens or Philips or any other big company will spend millions of dollars in patenting on one invention. And that's why, or drug companies. And that's why the prices are high, because they have to recoup all their expenses that they put out for this. So pursuing the patent trail and protecting your IP is not inexpensive, but it is still really a necessary process you should go about if this is something you have a passion about and you want to develop a business, or you want to develop the product into a real living entity. So there are some surprises along the way. Sometimes you have added expenses. Sometimes you have certain people you think you can work with and then it doesn't work out. That's a big one. I'm sure everybody's had that experience in business along the way. You have friends or you have partners that are simply not your cup of tea, or don't have a higher purpose to what you're trying to do. And then you have to decide, is it worth it? Should you quit your day job? I do not advise that. At times over my life, I've quit my day job and pursued passions. Keep not a backup plan, but try not to. But then some of the most successful people, this is all they do. They pursue their project. If it's a startup and it's a patented idea, they put maybe 60, 70 hours a week into it, and it could be for many years. So that's very hard to do and survive, especially if you have a family or responsibilities to other people. If you're alone and solo and you're a young person, it's easier to take that risk, but it's up to you. You have to really decide upfront if it's worth it. I recommend thinking about it, or working with somebody that does have the time. So the first thing I would do, and I still do it because I have ideas that I'm starting to pursue now, and I've done this in the past. I write the idea down, and I might draw figures by hand or use a PowerPoint to map out the device or the product or the method. What am I doing? Where do I want to end up? How did I get to this solution? Because you can think up an idea for something, but if you're going to make it a product that you're going to protect, you want to draw it out and map it out in writing. What is the process and how does it work? So the more drawings, the more writing you have is the better. You can always read through it and thin it out later before you go to a patent attorney to start reviewing it and work with them. So another thing you should do up front, and most people don't do it in the beginning, but they should, not a business plan, but right in the beginning, you need a business plan later to present to people, but you need to write out what do you think you need to get this into use, into society, to make it a commercial product. Now, one of my companies, we just develop IP. So we will license the patents, or we will restrict the patent and go after licensees that have not paid us a fee. But if we want to commercialize it, that's a whole nother thing. Commercialization is the way to make your product grow, and then you're still part of it. You might get bought out later, but you have to decide, how do I want this idea to work? Where do I want it to go? And make sure you're up for that journey, because as I said, this is I'm going on my 11th year of it, and people who have told me that it's a great idea said, make sure you're a patient person. Okay, so you have to have patience, and you have to be willing to live with numerous turn downs, numerous defeats. And it's sort of like you have a child and you love the child and you always want it to succeed, and you keep trying to make that runway clear so they can take off, okay, in life. Same thing for a patent. Now, you need a team. Some people work solo, that's great, but I really see successful projects, at least in my space in the medical device area, that have a good team. Now, as you get to know teams, there's always problems, because it's just working with human beings. There's going to be difference of opinions, but they have to be on the same page about, they realize what the product is and what it could do, okay, and how valuable the product could be. Okay, so my team, these are real people, but I won't identify their last names. There's a physics person, a salesperson, a medical person, a financial person, and an IT person, sort of an IT and patent packet writer, Martin. So we have Keith, Stephen, Tyven, Peter, and Martin. Now, this team, they're all seasoned veterans in the medical field, except for Peter's a financial person. So I took from what I knew within the industry, and I have networks that I was working with before in my industry. So reach out to people that you trust and that you really have a good feeling about, and try to enlist them. So that means immediately you have to offer them something, because they have day jobs, they have responsibilities to other people, and you have to not just ask them. You can ask them for advice once in a while, but you really need to include them. And that can create problems later, but it's worth the gamble, because you can go much farther and develop your patent and your product way out there with this amount of expertise. So what you're looking at on this page is probably about 170 years of experience. So that's very valuable if you're starting something, okay? Then your roadblocks. Of course, money. So far, I think my legal fees out of pocket through me and some partners, it's probably been about maybe 150,000 US dollars. So that's pursuing one patent heavily and a few other patents with other ideas. And you have to start to read everything. Don't believe that you know everything about what you invented, like why you got to that point. So I've read over the last 10 years, everything I get my hands out about biometric security, cyber security, cyber fraud, medical fraud. And so now I know a lot more than when I started, even though I know pretty much after 20 years in healthcare. And then I've met other inventors, not just for for my invention like biometrics, but other inventors in healthcare that have been successful in what they did. Even if they don't have a high level of success, maybe they got a device to Philips and it's being tested. That's good enough. They know a lot, especially engineers. Try to find an angel investor. Of course, everybody knows about that. Look for an angel investor, a friend, family members. Now, solutions are copyright, trademark, or patent initially. Write anything you write in the beginning, just write copyright, the date, and sign it. And then you've copyrighted it technically on paper, okay? Trademarks are another thing. I'm not involved in trademarking at this point because we're not commercialized. Patent, I'm heavily involved in over the last decade, and I'd be happy to discuss my experience. So I'm going to summarize now. I think I've hit my time almost. Yeah, I've over time, sorry. Why do it? Why pursue IP rights? I've seen, unfortunately, I don't want to end a bad note, many people try to steal not just my idea, but steal many other good people's ideas that put a lot of effort and time into it. And the only reason you would not patent is if you just want to give the idea to society and see where it goes, but there'll be many people who try to monetize it in that instance. I would say I'm happy I went on this road, but I would not advise everybody to go on it unless they're really passionate about what they're doing. You have to have the passion. So I thank you. Leanna, I'll give the screen back to you, I think, right?
That was great, David. Thank you so much. That was a great screen. You can put it up.
Okay.
It's very nice to look at.
If you want. Okay.
Yeah. So, that's a great overview. You really packed a lot in, and we're very safe on time. Thank you. So the floor is open for questions and discussion. So yeah, we invite anyone to ask a question or give a comment, and just unmute yourself to do that.
I would like to ask a question.
Sure.
If you are at the idea level, so you still don't have the prototype, you don't have the product, you don't have and too much to show, what would be your advice in order to protect this idea?
Okay.
It's not easy to protect an idea.
No, it isn't. I've learned the hard way, but I've had wonderful people help me along the way. And now I just want to find money to pay the lawyers. When you get a bill for $40,000, it's kind of painful, but it's necessary because later I hope to have the money to go after the people that are stealing my ideas, just so they do the honest thing and license it. But I really feel for people who get their ideas, we could say, ripped off from where I come from. And I think that's more and more a problem because many people think that, an idea should be shared with anybody, but they don't understand the amount of work somebody has to put in to make that idea be either brought to be into use or commercialize it. It can take your whole life's energy to get something out there. I'm 66 and I have a lovely wife and a son. And I think my nightmare is I'll be successful and on the next day I'll drop dead. So I won't get to see them enjoy my success, but they'll get the success. But it's not, I didn't start it for money. So I'm sorry to tangent. If you want to protect your idea in the beginning, first of all, write copyright down on all paper that you're writing, or any computer software file. Write copyright and the date, the year, and your name, if it's your idea. It depends also if this is a machinery that you're talking about, or a software, or a artistic invention, or a writing, like a novel.
Is a machinery, future
Okay.
development of machinery.
Okay, and so you're located in Spain, is that correct?
Currently, yes.
Yes. Okay, so then you would want to apply for a patent. Now, I usually there's a firm Accolade here in Hong Kong, which is quite reasonable. I'm not promoting them, but I mean, I've dealt with them for about 5 or 6 years. The first thing I would do is start to look. You could always contact me too if you want to talk further, but I would find out the patent attorneys in your city that you might work with locally. And then I would start to look at, if you don't already have the experience, how to write a patent packet, like what is required. You might want to file, I'm not sure about Spain, it's in the EP patent. You could file PCT, which is a global patent, and you file at the national stages later. If you think your product is a global product, you could file, and you want to protect it globally. You could file a European patent that protects it in the EU. You could file a US patent that gives you a priority date that you can apply to those patents later in most instances. So US patent is a provisional filing. Actually, it's a pretty good, the US is the only country that offers that I know of. So you file a provisional, you have a year to file the whole patent in the US, but then on top of it, you can file the other things I mentioned. So that gives you a priority date. Your priority date is important because your priority date determines if you have to defend your patent against somebody trying to steal it if it becomes a large business later. So you had the idea first, and also once people file patents, they disclose their idea to the patent authority, then it becomes prior art to other patent applications. So you want to get it in there as soon as you can. So the first thing would be write out your patent according to the patent submission. Take your idea, put it down on paper, do that work. And if you can go to, I've had some really great I've had many lawyers involved, but I have some really good ones that I've convinced to even look at my writing. I'm not the greatest patent composer. I can write my idea down. I do have a partner. If you have anybody in your circle, business or friends, that are very good writers that can help you write a patent packet. But if you feel confident doing it yourself, do it yourself. And then go make an appointment and spend some time with a lawyer, have them review it. And then you can also, before you meet them, do a patent search. You can do it with Google. There probably are some other tools, but even the patent office, you Google sometimes. Do a prior search and see how many people have similar idea. See, because they're going to look at that to challenge your patent during the process. They're going to see, is this a unique idea? So once you file the patent, you're on that road. You're on the road to protecting your IP. If you haven't filed it, you're not on that road. It's almost impossible to defend anything if you haven't have a established patent. Even if you're on that road and you establish a patent like me, if at the highest level, a patent litigator would be which I've ended up hiring, would be the best person to review your documents and speak to the patent bureau to defend your patent if it goes into a prosecution to defend it. Because later they want to write the patent now, so it has the legal language in it. Nobody can challenge the patent, a big corporation, to steal it. Because if you have a good idea and you're a solo actor or a small startup like I am, you want that patent to be ironclad. You want it to be very robust and powerful. So even the lawyers, the 200 lawyers from a big corporation, can't try to challenge you later. So that involves spending a little more money. But to start, get a good patent lawyer in your area. Start to research ask people if they use them, or just go online and look at the websites and start reading about the lawyers locally. It's always good to have a local legal firm. Hong Kong has a good system of granting $25,000 to applicants for a patent because they want technology startups here. So I got that grant about 5 years ago, and it's been a lifesaver for me at certain points because I can fund my initial patent for this biometric idea. I don't know if that's helpful.
Yes, I tried some years ago to register a patent in the Spanish official office. I know it was just a registration. I didn't complete the patent, so I have a broad idea of the costs. But I already had something to show, some drawings, some writings. I had something, a product already. The thing is that today, I have an idea that I'm starting to develop. And since it's only an idea, I think it's difficult to patent it. And what I've been doing so far, I know that in Europe, there is a directive, 2016 directive that protects business ideas. And so what I've been doing is just writing to a notary, to an official notary, going there and saying that on that date, I had this idea that I want to develop. At least it's officially registered that on that date, I had this idea. If somebody comes after, I can prove that, that I had this idea maybe before.
Right.
And once the product develops, then I will go for the patent, that's for sure.
Yes, I'll just add this to what you just said. I patented my idea without a prototype. So I went backwards. So because I didn't have the money, I have a prototype now. It cost probably about $30,000. More the coding was expensive because we wanted to use very high military grade encryption. So now I have it, and I can go to people to raise money. So, and I'm still developing it with other technology. But to go back, I got the patent. I got the first patent without the prototype being finished. You can still get a patent without a mechanical device. So you can still start that process again. Either way, it's going to get down to the patent officer saying, is this a good idea? Does this enhance society? Is it unique? That's what they're looking for. Whether you built it out or not is actually irrelevant. They're going by, I mean, it's better because some patent officers or offices state that it's better for you to have the device. Of course it is, because you're patenting what you built. But for example, I built my prototype out to demonstrate the patent. The patent would be, if you built a device out that's all finished and ready to be commercialized, that's great. But I didn't have that luxury. I wanted to patent the idea more than a device. The device is the way to display my idea. It can be many different versions of that idea. So it depends on what your idea is. Can I make 10 different versions of your idea to fit into 10 different businesses? Then you can't build out all 10. It's not feasible in the beginning. I would still pursue a patent. I would still, after what I went through, I presented to Xerox, and I won't say who, but somebody big at Xerox years ago. When I first was starting out, about 8 years ago, I got an introduction. A very nice person introduced me to their innovation section in Xerox in California. So I had a meeting with them, and this person said, "You'll never get that patented." So I said, "Well, thank you very much for your time." And, you know, I went on my way, and I didn't have a great evening, but actually he was wrong. So I got it patented. So, you know, I'm not as big as Xerox yet, but, you know, if I'm successful, I don't need to go back to him and say he was wrong. I just didn't listen to him. And that's, to me, as an inventor, that's a big thing. Listen to the people you respect that you know, I mean, that you've gotten to know. I listen to my lawyers because they're pretty smart, right? And they know patent law. But on business aspects, they might not have experience. They might not, you know, they might, but, and some of them do, so I listen to them, but some of them have not anything to do with business, just the patent process. Of course, first to market is very important, but then you can get it stolen if it's not. But if you have patent pending in America, you can protect it for the American market, then it's enforceable for a year. Other patents, you can't say patent pending. You have patent application, like what you're talking about in Europe. You don't have to apply in Spain if you think maybe there's, I'm not saying anything about Spain, but you could go to a patent office in Germany. You can get a German lawyer. You can get a Belgian lawyer. You can shop around. You can work remotely now. You don't have to engage, and you can ask them for, some patent lawyers do not work by the hour. I've worked with people who charge me a package or charge me by the hour. Of course, by the hour is more expensive, and usually those people are at the high level of patent law. But they're worth the money if you're really pursuing the idea, of course, because they'll make it a very strong piece of work that you can expand upon. Once you get the patent, you can file for extensions, and then you can file divisional patents. So this is what big companies do. Maybe you know this. I'm sorry if I'm saying something you already know, but you keep a patent open for many years. You can keep applying and improving your product. So that gives you more life for the patent and increases the protection of what your idea is. So I would encourage you to look at that again. Of course, that business strategy from 2016 that you talked about is probably quite valuable, but it's not enforceable globally. And it might be hard. It costs money to enforce your patent or to enforce any kind of document, any kind of legal document. You're going to have to get a lawyer to protect your product anyway. So that's more expense, right? So having the patent and having a strong patent, to me, still is the strongest way to protect your IP.
Thank you,
just
David.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I love that that reminder that, as long as we're in innovation, we're always facing crossroads and advice from people with different perspectives and challenge to, I guess, even think about who we should be listening to and why. Yeah, TJ has had his hand up for a little while, so I'm curious to know what he's curious about.
Yeah, thanks for this opportunity, and thank you for inspiring me to actually file a patent here in the Philippines and also in the US. So just to give you a little bit of background, what's unique here in the Philippines is that before you could actually be granted with a patent or copyright, you have to prove that there are actual customers using your product. And what you mentioned earlier, you don't have a prototype, but you still have, you already started a process of the patent. That kind of encouraged me because it is an advantage. So I'm curious, like, what made you decide to still file it anyways, despite the odds of the existing, like for my case, there's an existing regulation. Like, if you were in my shoes, would you still file the patent that you wanted to do despite without the prototype and actual users?
Yes, I would absolutely file it if you're going to do any business outside of the Philippines. I would file it because that's, although that's a large market, if you intend to take it anywhere out of your country, anybody could take it away in other regions if you don't file it. So I would file a world patent maybe, and then you get 2 years. You file the initial patent, was it WTO, you could file it through offices around Asia, maybe China, or through the US you could do it, but your patent attorney would work that out. So you have an international patent with, I don't know if it's 120, 140 countries that you can file at the national stage, and then it's published, but you have that filed. So you have some protection that you have prior art and your ideas out there, and you have 2 years to file at the national stage. And then you can map out your business strategy and decide what countries do you think you could get investors to help you go into, or local investors in those countries, and then you file in those regions. So that's been a very interesting thing for me, because I have one project for healthcare and one for aviation. So aviation is a difficult one because the aircraft technology isn't just in the United States or China or Britain, it's in different regions. But then I have to look at my budget, and look at where am I going? So I would definitely, file a patent and, global patent, look at the options, the patent highway, and research that, or I could send you some information. And all my patents now are filed for a worldwide patent. They started in America to get the priority date, because it's a year ahead of time. But then you get actually 3 years before your deadline to decide on what nations you want to be patented in. And then that's a lot of other research to say, is it worth it to me to go into those nations, right? Are the courts going to enforce my patent? How much does it cost to manage my patent in that country? Do I want that market? Is that market going to be powerful? Will investors look at that market as attractive? Many questions. So, but I would always, there is I can send you his name. I forgot his name right now. He was a lawyer that was would go after companies to get money for violating patents, and he was very big. Spangelberg. He started a website and a company to democratize patents, so people could put their IP on a website, be protected internationally, and they could license the patents off there. But you want to commercialize. That's a very interesting rule they have, because once you have a commercial product, other people might already be in the process of lifting your IP from other regions if they see it on the internet, especially. So I never heard of that. That's a very interesting fact. But depends where your business is.
Just to share you a bit more information, like here in the Philippines right now is very interesting because I have a lending license because I have a financing company in Makati. And what's happening right now is a lot of foreign companies are bidding to buy our company to acquire the license, because the central bank here in the Philippines is not anymore releasing new licenses for fintech companies or for any new lending types or banking types of companies because of the pandemic. They're just observing what's going to happen. They don't want to see a bunch of new lending companies popping out of nowhere in the middle of an uncertain time. So there are companies that are already like bidding for a company. It just goes crazy. It started with $500,000. Right now, the highest bid right now is like around 1.5 million US dollars just to get our license to start operating here in the Philippines. Because I'm not sure if this is still popular in Hong Kong. There's a company called Leica, I presume, and they have like gems of sorts. They started operating in the Philippines. They got shut down by the SEC because they don't have the license to operate. And now I came across this idea because I have a lending license. I also consult with a licensed cryptocurrency company, and I was thinking, how will it feel if you could actually use your Bitcoin or your Ethereum as a collateral? And I've seen this happen in other sites and apps like Binance. They're doing this already, and then with lower interest rates compared to the banks. So that's something that I can execute here in the Philippines, and some sort of, I won't say monopoly, but I'm legally protected because I have a license to do lending. I am consulting with a cryptocurrency company that does exchanging to fiat to crypto. And what's really missing right now is the ability to do collaterals using crypto, like Bitcoin as a collateral to borrow money. And that's something that, and what's preventing us right now is we don't have a use case, or we don't have proof like, hey, we have people giving us Bitcoin in our app and we give them pesos so they could borrow money from us. But we do have existing clientele that, hey, we've already borrowed, millions of pesos to a lot of people because we have a financing company. So what's really interesting right now, when I was listening to your presentation, you kind of encouraged me to, I don't know, be like, it's easier to say sorry or ask forgiveness than ask permission for some reason, wherever you are. Like when it comes to starting a new business, because right now we're in a gray area, right? So I will look into the world patent because I think that's really interesting. Like I'm pretty sure in other countries they probably patented this idea already, but in the Philippines it's a different matter. So I mean, if I know Binance doesn't have an office country or host country yet, but if someone beats me to it, then fine. But if it's something that I can execute here in the Philippines, let's say, yeah, they can have the rest of the world, but I have this patent here in the Philippines, I can do this operations legally here, then I think I'll be fine. I can still execute. I'm legally protected, and yeah, I'll take your advice. I'm gonna look into that world patent, And at the same time, I'm looking forward to know the lawyer with a website, because that will make things easier. A lot of lawyers that are just, you just phone call them, which is really hard. But I think with a website, I think that's really unique, and that's something I want to work with. So yeah. Thank
Thanks,
you,
TJ.
David.
Sure.
Yeah.
It sounds very interesting. I would do a search. I'm not sure about your invention that you're working on. Does it have algorithms attached to it that you have developed? It does. Are those?
Well,
Sorry?
mostly already pre-developed by other developers on the blockchain. But I will also have my own safety and my own algorithms involved into it.
Yeah.
Because
So have you
that would be a
copyrighted
proprietary.
Do you have a copyright on those algorithms already?
Not yet. Not yet, because the requirement here in the Philippines, I need to show that there are existing customers using it before I could copyright it.
Understood.
That's the weird stuff. And when you mention you don't need that in the US, I'm like, maybe, just maybe, whatever paperwork I have, just to shield.
So I had a friend who was a lawyer. They copyrighted. They're from Hong Kong. They copyrighted some things for companies developing product all over the world, just automatically. Now that can be expensive. It was about 30,000 Hong Kong dollars per nation. But you might pick some areas where you might want to enter later, some other nations, and copyright it in those countries. File it, somehow. If there's something that is worth copywriting, that's going to be your legwork. But I can send you some lawyers if you email me. I'll email you back with some recommendations for lawyers in fintech, financial world.
Yeah, because it got me an idea now. What if I could patent the whole idea and process per country? I don't need a lending license in other countries. I just need to process the lending in the Philippines, but I can still have a patent. That sounds like a dick move, but I can like I can give royalties, I guess, for other companies who's gonna go into that route.
Yes, you have a company, and then you can license out the IP to the company nation by nation if your IP is marketable to them. So other companies, they might not want to fight with you. They just might want to pay you a fee to license your technology if they see it's valuable. Or you can commercialize it and since you're investing, get an investor and commercialize it yourself. It's up to you how you want to do it.
Yeah,
the first one, you need
TJ?
lawyers. So.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, very cool story. Bharat has had his hand up for a while, and I did want to let everyone know that we're scheduled till 9 Hong Kong time. So, the hour that's 3 minutes from now. But David has kindly agreed to stay a little bit longer. So we'll end the event at 9:15 in case there are more questions coming. But as always, anyone who needs to leave earlier, thank you for joining us. So with that, Bharat, please.
Go ahead.
Quick one. David, thank you. Thank you for this wonderful sharing. Especially, I took one good thing. I have always been writing copyright under all my documents. You gave me a very good tip to add some year and date there, which I was not doing. So I think that is one very good tip I got from here. I would have to leave because I have another meeting coming up in another 2-3 minutes. Slaughter, I have sent you a WhatsApp message. If you could put it on. I am not able to type on the chat. So if you can, so that everyone can get my LinkedIn. And I have just put an introduction on your WhatsApp. Thank you so much. Nice meeting you. I have done some work on this topic and I am willing to engage with David to share my stories. There are a lot of stories into this protection because I do a lot of work with startups. And I think, David, somewhere I've seen you in some of these startups as a judge, or I don't know, some event I have seen you, I think so. And maybe I was presenting my startup. I don't know.
I think we met once before. Yeah.
And I have 2 failed startups, and just now talking to you, I got an idea. Why don't we have a startup which will patent everyone's and give for fraction of the money? So if 25,000, maybe you pay me 2,000, I will patent for you. You give me 0.1% of the idea, something like that. Another idea today for you. I have to leave because I have another meeting. And I would like to connect to the lady with the esports and also with the Philippine gentleman, if possible. Of course, everyone is welcome to connect with me, and I'm open for it. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But
Thank you so
Bharat,
much.
But Bharat, you're a member of GBO, so you can
No
connect with
problem.
everybody.
If you think it is okay, let's see, because I am on a lot of platforms. I've already met you in many of my events, so very difficult to take out time and add another membership as of now. But then again, my best wishes. Keep inviting us, what we can share whatever we can. And thank you so much once again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now I can totally use my license as a leverage this time.
Yeah. Sounds good.
Thanks to David's presentation, it encouraged me to do this.
Never give up.
Yeah, I mean, usually like, here's my house, use it as collateral. But what if here's my Bitcoin, use it as collateral? I think that would be very interesting.
Yeah, well, you're never too old to couch surf. You know, if usually when people hit rock bottom, that's when things start to get great, unfortunately, with this kind of thinking. But that's why I said you have to be really dedicated up front, that you're willing to take all the risks and go after it. It's not nobility, it's just that's what you want to do. So there's nothing noble in it. But if you do help people, that is noble. You know, if it ends up, my device, you know, I've gone through many things, many business discussions. Usually they're money centric. And lately, the last year or two, I've gotten kind of tired of that. Not going after money or getting money. You know, I want money and nothing wrong with money. But I didn't start the project for money. I started because I thought it would help people. So you always have to keep that inside and keep true to that idea. Actually, else the major money people will see that in you. You know, they're about money, but they actually, when you get to talk to VC at a high level, they really want to do good things with all that money. They're just looking for the right people to hand it to. And there is a lot of money around, but they're not going to let go of it if all you're after is getting funded. You know, they want to see the commitment. So you have to be living proof of the commitment to your idea. It's not an easy road, but most roads aren't easy. So I just say I would encourage anybody with an idea they want to do to keep with it. You know, they'll know if it's over, or they'll go on to another idea that's better. You know.
Hey, other David, what's up?
All good. I learned some things. I'm not really familiar with patents. I've only done some trademarks.
Oh,
But it was interesting to hear you, TJ, because as far as I know, there's no problem setting up a new lending company. Where the BSP put up a moratorium was on OPS, VASP, and EMI, not on lending.
yes, but you probably haven't heard of being approved also within this pandemic when it comes to giving new license.
BSP doesn't take care of lending licenses.
SEC.
SEC. But as far as I know, they're still giving them.
Okay, that's interesting.
They've closed down many lending companies for the simple reason they never got a secondary license.
Mm.
People
Yeah.
see it's a two-step process at the SEC, which normally you file at the same time, and most companies just don't bother with the second part when there's no extra work on it. The problems are afterwards. Once you're registered, they keep coming out with new things for compliance.
Yeah, so, well, for us, I think either way, whatever, let's say if they decide to give new licenses or whatnot, I think it's still better if we could protect the idea of crypto as a collateral for lending. I think that's something that not a lot of companies or people are doing here in the Philippines. So
yeah, well, I think very few lending companies would actually do it in the Philippines because they're very conservative. And since crypto as a collateral the collateral price just jumps around.
That's
It's so
true.
volatile. It's going to be very difficult to give a very big loan percentage wise of the collateral when the next day could be 30% less against the peso.
That's true, but for as a platform or as the house, what they usually do, it doesn't matter if they dip to 30 or 60% in a year, but if you look at it in a long-term perspective, the value of, let's say, Bitcoin has been appreciating throughout a decade, for an instance. So they're playing along the lines when the value goes down, they usually ask the borrower to provide more Bitcoin, for example, just to compensate with the value. Or if they will not, they just keep the Bitcoin, which eventually in the future it would still appreciate. And there's still
So
risk.
you're
as a-
foreclosing. You're basically foreclosing on the collateral. So it doesn't really matter, but you're still taking a risk because you'll have less pesos to lend out because you didn't get the money. And, sometimes it takes 6 months or 1 year for that Bitcoin to go
Or
back up to the value.
or 4 years, it
Or
depends.
4
Yeah.
years, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
We're aware of that risk as well. But Binance has been doing it. They're lending at what, 0.7% per month. That's like less than 9% annually. That's usually lesser than the banks here in the Philippines. And they're happy with that kind of setup. And that's why I was like curious about, like, hey, we have a lending license. Why aren't we doing this? And so
You
next
can
week-
take anything you want as collateral. That's up to you.
True, but not everything is easily liquidated. And Bitcoin can be liquidated easily now in the Philippines through, let's say, Moneybees, for example.
Yeah.
So, it's about liquidation. Okay, we
David,
have
I had a question.
go.
David S.
Yes.
Yeah. So what I'm understanding is that like ideas need money, so you need people to invest in them to protect them.
Right.
But then you would need to share them in order to attract investors who want to be involved in that.
Well, there's many reasons to get investors. It's not just money, and you need the right investors actually to make it grow. But go ahead. Sorry. What was the rest of the question?
That's it. Like I'm seeing this like cycle, right?
Oh,
Like
Okay.
you need financial support. You need financial support in order to protect the idea. But in order to get that financial support, you have to share some of that idea to attract those supporters.
Oh, you mean tell them about it? Yeah, of
Yeah,
course.
tell them about it. So how do you navigate that?
Well,
circle?
you can have them sign a non-disclosure agreement usually. Sometimes people are weird. They just don't. I mean, usually a professional person will say, "Where's your non-disclosure?" They will know if they know, and an investor, they will know that, or they will provide one for you. So both parties are protected by that discussion. So you disclose about your product, what you want to share. The lawyers will tell you. The good lawyer I have, she says, tell them so much. I mean, she says, tell them less than I've told them. I've taken risks, but that's up to you. How much do you want to risk? How much do you want to expose? But my patents are published online, so any big company could look at them, have 200 lawyers look at them if they have the billions of dollars, right? And they can take the patent apart and redesign the product and re-engineer it and build it themselves by stealing it. They can do that. But if I have a good lawyer, they're not going to want to get sued for $100-200 million. They're not going to want to do that. But just to share your idea, you can describe your idea in general terms. I could describe my idea. I mean, of course, I've had tons of practice. I could describe my idea in probably 2 or 3 sentences to you, and then we could have a discussion. Now, of course, I've been in relationships over the last decade. You can imagine that partners tried to steal, not those people up on the screen, but other partners in another country tried to steal my idea, and they were acting like they were coming to me in good faith. And that was a mess. Okay. So
That's
I
kind of
didn't
the
want
next area I was curious about. Like, how do you protect
no,
ideas
it
and
can
partners?
become a nightmare. It was a nightmare
Yeah.
for about 2 years. But
Mhm.
I think I'm at a much more developed place in the IP protection of this idea now. They actually filed stuff stealing some of the IP, but it doesn't matter at all because it wasn't what they rewrote, the lawyers they hired. I don't think it'll get patented. And if it does, good luck to them, but I have all the priority dates, which I was discussing before, and the IP is mine. So I don't think a judge in any court, if I had to go that far, which I don't think I'll have to go that far, they'll probably abandon the idea because they were just interested in the money. They were not technology people. They didn't care about the project. They just, they were potential investors in Europe, and they just wanted to take it. So they acted in good faith. We had agreements signed. They didn't honor any agreements. That's another issue. So people can be really unscrupulous, right? I didn't like what happened, but actually it was great learning because I still talk to people. I still trust people, but it taught me what to look for in the discussions later on, about what and why aren't they acting on things agreed upon. So now I would be quicker to act if I see anything going on, and probably a lot rougher, on the people involved, not to try to hurt them, but to protect the people, my partners, and the idea, and me. Now I'm acting on a group effort, right? I have 5 other partners at this point, and I have other partners peripherally. So I never wanted to make a mistake that would hurt the whole project or the people. But now it's at a higher level, so I have to be very careful. But so you must disclose something, but you get a non-disclosure agreement. So they're pretty standard. You could even lift one offline and just change it. You could have a lawyer draft one, but that would be expensive. But you could do that. But again, if people are dishonorable, they sign anything and they don't care. That happens. So the patent will protect you down the line. For example, in the US, if you have a patent and somebody imports, say this person stole my idea, built it up in somewhere other country, and start to ship it to the US, start to sell it. That's actually good for me because the US customs agents will seize every product they make, and then they'll be fined. There'll be warrants out. They can't enter the United States. It'll be fine. It'll be taken care of by the government because I have a patent, but I don't have to file a complaint. It's nothing I want to worry about. I'd rather have lawyers worry about all this. That's why I stress to get a lawyer, spend the money, find the money. If you have to get a partner to spend the money, that's okay too. And if you want to hoard all that equity 100% to yourself, unless you're doing the work, it's a small thing that you're making, right? And you're going out and selling it and making a lot of money. Maybe you make violins, right? And you're the only one that makes them. And you make 10 a year and you make $2 million. That's great. And you could patent your violin design. But most things you're going to need a lot of help. So I'm a 20 and the startup from the beginning, I'm a 21% equity holder. So I've sold, not sold, but I've assigned equity to partners that should bring value to the project. And that creates its own responsibilities and stresses because you have to keep the partners on track and you have to keep yourself true to the project, so you have to work with a team. So of course it's easier to work alone in a lot of ways because you don't have to deal with those human interactions, just do what you want to do, but it's not going to work out that well a lot if you don't get help. So it's taught me other skills, to compromise and look for the best partners, look for the best relationships, and not to trust when people just talk about money, about what I'm doing. They're not interested in what it is, in depth. Then I know they're just looking to make money off it, which is fine. But if they're not going to write me a check, why are they talking to me? You have to have like triggers inside you build them up. But I would give a lot of advice to somebody going through this in the beginning for free to avoid the kind of potholes that I fell into along the way. They're not pleasant.
Yeah, well, but I also would imagine that that's how an instinct is trained,
Right.
right? Just
Yeah.
through exposure, through experience, through tripping and knowing what it feels like to fall on your face.
Sure. Yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
next time, oh, that rock is a little uneven there.
Yeah. And the
I want to
problem
change
is,
my stride.
if you're trying to build something with a really strong foundation, which I'm trying to do, it takes a long time. You know,
Yeah.
so it puts a toll on me. It puts a toll on my family. I have a family. So even if I support them, you know, it's not about what I bring home. It's like emotional commitment to a project. It can be very draining, you know, from your energy you want to give to in your home life. So you have to develop a balance that you don't sacrifice that, but it's almost impossible. There was a movie that I want to watch it again. I forgot the name, with Tom Hanks. It was about the inventor, a true story, the windshield wipers, variable motors. Yeah, you remember that. Okay. That was a great movie. And he ended up losing so much in his personal life, but he had a good idea that could save lives, you know, and he pursued it. So this is very noble. You know, you have to be willing to want to do that. It's sort of like an all cost, but you don't want to really, like, if I have to do it over again, I would be more, of course I would have wisdom, hopefully, but you never have it in the start. So, well, most people don't. Some people are equipped, you know, I wasn't, so I had to learn trial and error. But share your idea with people that, I mean, I don't go into a room now and talk about not knowing people. I don't just talk about, I mean, you can look at it on a website and there's a lot of information, but I don't really explain how it works. That's, you know, that's proprietary information that we paid for and developed, you know, and I send the beta version video only to potential licensees or investors. I don't put it up on YouTube, you know, because that'll be ripped off by somebody somewhere, you know. And people are getting closer. Like, when you have a good idea, usually it's about 4 or 5 years and people start to come up with the same idea. That's another, I got into it a little bit, but that's an important thing too. If you have a good idea, you better act on it, because somebody else will have that good idea or something like
Probably
it.
the situation is converging in a way that
Right.
idea is becoming apparent to a lot of different people.
Right. Like, I have the COVID detector idea within 10 seconds, right? And we talked about it, right? And that's patented now, but, or patent pending, global patent. Now I see in the last 2 weeks, I didn't email you, but there are articles about people developing similar device, but they're still not doing what I'm doing. So I still have a, you know, a couple of years. So now I'm trying to meet people who can develop it. You know, that's not, the patent is, the legal stuff's taken care of for now. So I have another year or two to meet the right scientists. And then you have to give away part of it, you know, but that project, happy to give away part of it if it gets done. But that would also, you know, a 10-second COVID detector with data management would free up all the airports, as we discussed. So that's another idea. But
Yeah,
now I
very-
know more, I have more experience how to get to the right people and not get so stressed out about trying to get it to market. And I don't focus on my money on these projects anymore at all. You know, people have dreams, they'll invent something, make a lot of money. I need money just like anybody else. But I focus now on the tasks at hand and project and try to get really solid advice as what I need to do to get it where I need to, you know, where it needs to go, the project or the idea. Yep.
Yeah, very
But-
cool. I feel like we're like brainstorming another event. Like DJ's hosting an event next week about leadership. But
Oh
you
shit,
know,
I forgot to announce it. Everyone's
like-
gone.
yeah. But we got to lead somebody, right? So I feel like, you know, what we're talking about is like, how do you build your team? And, you know, something about choosing your team, like, you know, your instincts for choosing the people you want to work with. I think that's, it seems like an interesting area to discuss.
Oh,
It's
speaking
key.
of that, yeah.
Uh,
Speaking of that, I've been pitching to Miguel that we will have a GBO event here in the Philippines where people from Europe would fly in here. I've been traveling for 3 weeks, waterfall to waterfall, white sand beach to white sand beach, 4 to 5-star hotels. And I think, yeah, the country's opening up. I hope it continues that way. hopefully there's not a surge of whatever cases in the future, but if that's going to be the case going on here in the Philippines, I think we could host a GBO event here where everyone else globally can come to the Philippines, because a lot of places are still really on lockdown, which is weird. So yeah, I'm not so sure about your
Throw
sentiment.
together a deck. Throw together a deck with those beautiful pictures and pitch it.
Yeah,
Pitch.
actually, yeah, I've been chatting with Miguel about it, especially there's a change of
Yeah.
management and by the end of April, right? So
Yeah. A lot of changes. Guys, it's 9:20 and I gotta get going, but y'all are welcome to keep talking if you want.
thank you, David Schneider.
Thank you. I hope it was helpful. I never know. Okay.
I am gonna talk to my partner Mark next week, because he's really religious. It's like, TJ, it's the Holy Week. Let's talk about business next week. And I'm like, okay, I just came from my trip. I just want to do something work related. It's like, TJ, it's Holy Week. I'm telling you. I'm like, okay, next week.
Yeah,
So
David, this was valuable. You put it in, I mean, the slideshow was, I mean, expectedly the tip of the iceberg, a very interesting tip of the iceberg. And, once the floor was open for questions, then, more and more came out. And it's like, the audience also gave you like case studies to work with to see how your mind works, given these like different situations and all the different angles to consider. So I think that's really special.
And
Well,
you got
thanks,
someone
thanks.
from Germany, right? Gerald was there. He's from Germany.
Gerald did show up. Gerald showed up. Mark showed up. Yeah, we had a few latecomers, so we didn't hear from them in the introductions. But yeah, they showed up, and we have some positive feedback in the chat. Speaking of that, I'll just save that right now.
Germany has very good patent attorneys. We're working with one of them for the EU patenting national stage for a PCT filing for this. And I can send you some patent lawyers if you email me for your crypto project. And
yeah, sure thing. Yeah, I really want to see it happen, because other people are making money from it already. Why can't we? I mean, we have the right legal system in place. So yeah,
right.
realities.